The film opens with Lewis, a detective on a secret mission. He is hunting down a dangerous killer in a crime-ridden area. On his way, a group of thugs tries to drive him away, but Lewis easily takes them down one by one.
I'm gonna get you, man! I'll be back!
While searching through an old building, he discovers a corpse, then suddenly he is attacked by a fugitive named Naylor, a ruthless man who once killed one of Lewis's partners. From that moment on, Lewis holds a personal grudge against him.
I'm the Sandman. You can't stop me. You're under arrest.
1.5 years later, Lewis receives a new and highly risky assignment. A major case emerges at Harrison Prison after the assistant director is found murdered. It is suspected that the guards are involved in a series of mysterious inmate deaths. With the election for the new prison director approaching, the prison officials want to cover things up, while the governor pressures the prosecutor's office to resolve the case quickly. Eventually, it is decided to send Lewis into the prison under a new identity as an armed robber, so that he will be both respected and feared by the inmates.
We want to send you undercover into Harrison as a prisoner. You'll be sentenced to Harrison for armed robbery.
On this mission, Lewis works with Amanda, a young prosecutor who becomes his contact on the outside. Amanda's job is to relay the findings and support him behind the scenes. Lewis initially doubts her experience since she only graduated a year ago, but Amanda insists she is no ordinary woman. She was the top graduate at her university. Finally, Lewis asks her to dig into the records of the inmates who had been killed. Upon arrival at the prison, Lewis is immediately confronted with its harsh reality. A commanding sergeant introduces the rules in a brutal way, even beating inmates just to set an example.
It's important that you obey my rules.
He throws peanuts at Lewis, but Lewis remains calm without reacting. The sergeant warns that behind bars, rules are the thin line between life and death. In his cell, Lewis meets his cellmate who tries to bully him. He demands money in exchange for Lewis's peace, even threatening him in a disgusting way. When the man pulls out a shiv, Lewis moves quickly and subdues him until he surrenders.
I don't pay. Just jerking you around, you don't have to have a hair.
From that moment on, Lewis is free to choose his bed as he wishes. The next day, a member of Perez's gang challenges Hawkins, one of the more respected inmates. Lewis instinctively intervenes, sparking a fierce brawl. The guards rush in to break it up, while the sergeant warns Lewis that he will not last long in such a dangerous place.
Back to dinner!
Hey, why don't you sit with us, fish?
What's the matter with you? Can't you see this is a black table? You don't know who I am. You don't know anything.
Sit down, bright boy.
Back in his cell, his cellmate offers him homemade liquor and warns him not to trust anyone. He shares that he has spent 6 years behind bars, witnessing many prisoners killed by guards. In his view, it's better to stay quiet than to meddle in others' business.
I hear a lot of guys, are they?
That afternoon, Amanda reports her initial findings. Most of the victims were killed with stab wounds at the base of the skull, a pattern resembling gang executions. One of the latest victims was named Alvin. Lewis tells her he needs to extract information from his cellmate, but for that, he needs money.
You did good.
Thanks.
Hours later, Perez returns with his crew for revenge, but once again Lewis defeats them all. Amanda then smuggles money to Lewis through a book. With this, Lewis begins to approach Hawkins, a powerful inmate who has served more than 10 years. Hawkins is known to be dangerous, able to control many other inmates, and even craft weapons behind bars. Lewis asks about Alvin, Hawkins's friend. Hawkins suggests he speak to the pastor, an inmate so highly respected that even guards show deference to him.
So you don't get dusted.
With his cellmate's help, Lewis manages to meet the pastor. The pastor confirms that Alvin did indeed die from a fatal head wound, then advises Lewis to talk to Meyerson, Alvin's former cellmate who now works night shifts at the prison clinic.
You could talk to Myers, Barrett's former cellmate.
During surveillance, Lewis sees the sergeant bringing in a corpse. He pretends to cause an accident and notices suspicious red liquid. The doctor calls it medical waste, but Lewis is certain something is being hidden. When he talks to Meyerson, he hears the official story that Alvin died of drugs. Yet Meyerson insists Alvin was a good man who had only once stolen from a warehouse. Pressured, Meyerson refuses to say more, warning Lewis that speaking up is a death sentence.
Hey, look, don't kill me if I talk. A guard let him in, not me.
Before the clinic closes, Lewis leaves in a hurry. He then reports his findings to Amanda over the phone, telling her the guards are clearly involved in Alvin's death and that he needs access to victim files. Amanda explains that the original files are still stored inside the prison.
I need the key to the records room.
That can be arranged.
Hey! Hey!
Lewis asks the pastor for help in getting the key. With Hawkins creating a diversion, Lewis sneaks into the archives. There, he discovers suspicious records.
Arrival.
Out of here, huh?
A load of shirts for the reception desk.
What was that?
Who's that?
I must be going crazy.
Nah. A lot of old ghosts hanging around this place.
Let's get out of here.
The victims are brand new. No drugs, no gangs.
All the murder victims were new inmates, had no history of drugs or gangs, and all had the code SL in their files. Lewis asks Amanda to investigate the meaning of the code through the central system. The detective suggests Amanda consult a professional to decipher the SL abbreviation. He also warns her not to share information with the state council representative, the man who was present when the case was first assigned to him.
Well, what? It's checking. Cell could stand for virtually anything. We got something here.
With help from a professional named Douglas, Amanda continues her investigation. But to access the full files, they need a code, which will take about 2 days to recover.
Bingo!
That's it, that's the file.
Give me a day or two.
Speaking with the prosecutor, Amanda mentions that the detective asked her not to reveal anything, believing the investigation could be completed without outside interference. Meanwhile in prison, the detective speaks with an inmate who says his friend didn't deserve the fate he suffered. The inmate reveals that years ago he was involved in smuggling illicit substances. He gives Lewis some keys, warning that if they are not returned on time, he will be in deep trouble. He also mentions that just the previous night, another inmate was killed with a gunshot wound to the head. The next morning, a girl who often assists the pastor comes to tell Lewis that someone will visit him that night, so he must be prepared. Meanwhile, Douglas deciphers the clue from the keys and finds that someone has been sending files from outside the prison. He continues digging for more information.
Abbreviation HLA is the coding system for tissue type.
This is my paper number. You call me as soon as you find it out, okay? Stop.
When Amanda speaks with Lewis, she reveals that the files contained the identities of inmates along with their blood types. Every person listed had ended up dead. The victims had undergone health checks, all of which showed them as healthy, suggesting an outside party may be working with the guards. Douglas then finds that Lewis's own cellmate is the next target. That night, 2 armed inmates sneak into the cell. Lewis hears their steps, hides, and ambushes them, saving his cellmate. But when the guards arrive, they assume Lewis is the attacker and throw him into solitary confinement. A sergeant appears and beats him savagely.
What are you doing in my prison?
mouth.
In subsequent scenes, another inmate kills an informant, signaling further chaos in the prison. The prison doctor is even burned alive. To end his suffering, he tries to take his own life.
I swear to... You're a liar, Myers.
Your husband is waiting. But you're gonna have to remove your clothes.
The next day, the sergeant releases Lewis from solitary to receive a visitor. While talking with the detective, Lewis flirts with Amanda, and the two end up in a heated physical encounter.
I checked on Dr. Gottesman, and
To help Lewis, the pastor creates another diversion, giving Lewis time to enter the medical ward.
So big white Superman gonna save our asses?
There he breaks open a lock and discovers that the remains found so far were actually human organs. Hours later, the guards bring in a new prisoner. It turns out to be the killer Lewis had shot several times before. Left alone, the inmates set a trap. Lewis is chained to a pipe, then Naylor appears wielding a knife. Naylor threatens to expose Lewis's identity to the inmates, vowing that his life in prison will become hell. He has been waiting a long time for this revenge.
Every killer in this prison is gonna know who you are. Prisoners hate cops more than anything else.
Back in his cell, inmates shout threats at Lewis, ready to torture him just for being a cop. Hawkins tells Lewis that Alvin was never truly his friend and had always lied. Lewis replies that his only goal is to stop the crimes happening in the prison. Hawkins adds that in prison, a cop is considered lower than a pedophile. Lewis begs for help, but Hawkins walks away, saying it's too late.
Why are you still here? You're a dead man.
Hawkins.
Meanwhile, Amanda meets Tom to discuss the case and urges him to pull Lewis out of prison. During their conversation, Douglas calls to say he found a new access point, and reveals that prosecutor Tom is also part of the scheme. Tom apologizes, stressing the importance of secrecy. But then he pulls a gun, saying Lewis is too clever. Since the inmates failed to kill him, Naylor has been tasked to finish the job.
We have to keep the bad parts of our lives private.
why?
I just to save her life.
Tom explains that it all began with his attempt to save his wife Helen, who was gravely ill and needed a liver transplant. Because the official waiting list was too long, Tom sought a shortcut and met a doctor named Gordon, who promised him a liver. At first, Tom saw this as a solution, but soon as a lucrative business, harvesting organs from criminals or those deemed worthless to society. Over time, he stopped seeing them as people, only as commodities in a $1 million illegal trade.
We're killing criminals. Garbage.
Oh, Tom, there you are. What's going on?
Suddenly, Helen appears, confused about what is happening. Amanda uses the moment to escape, telling Helen before leaving that her husband is a murderer.
Tell her how you murdered for.
Back in prison, a guard mocks Lewis. The detective lures him into approaching the cell. As soon as the guard touches the bars, Lewis shocks him with high voltage, seizes his keys, and attempts to escape. But Naylor opens all the cells, plunging the prison into chaos. When Lewis encounters the sergeant, the guards capture him and drag him to the medical ward.
Caused us a great deal of trouble, Detective Burke.
There he is brutally beaten. The sergeant nearly kills him, but Gordon intervenes, reminding them that the death of an undercover cop could expose their secret operation. At that moment, Hawkins appears and saves Lewis by shooting the sergeant and the inmates with him. The two run for safety. In the medical ward, another inmate comes at Lewis with a barbell, but Lewis manages to fight back and kill him with it. Soon after, Dr. Gordon is cornered by inmates seeking revenge. As Hawkins takes an elevator, he is shot by another prisoner. Lewis calms the other inmates, urging them to stay put and assuring them that the area is the safest place. He promises that if he escapes, he will come back to help them. Lewis then joins the pastor to head for an exit. Suddenly, Naylor emerges wielding an axe and attacks the pastor. Naylor then toys with Lewis, hurling heavy objects, kicking him, and injuring him. Using whatever weapons are at hand, Lewis manages to hit Naylor several times, forcing him back. But Naylor hides again, keeping Lewis on edge. In the fierce battle that follows, Lewis gains the upper hand and wounds Naylor, but Naylor retaliates with dirty tricks, knocking Lewis from a height. Other inmates gather to watch their duel.
Time to bleed!
With a lamp, Naylor wounds Lewis, but Lewis manages to turn the tables and push Naylor into a furnace. Though burning, Naylor tries to crawl out until Lewis kicks him again, impaling his head on a metal pipe. Though he pretends to be fine at first, Naylor finally dies at Lewis's hands. After that, the inmates who witnessed the fight become intimidated. None dare oppose him again. Lewis then exits with his friend to receive medical care. The film closes with Lewis and Amanda, now a couple, sharing a passionate kiss. And that is how the story ends. From this story, we can learn that justice sometimes demands great sacrifice. Lewis risked his life by going undercover to expose the truth hidden behind the prison's dark walls. The story also reminds us that greed and abuse of power only lead to destruction. In the end, courage, determination, and humanity are what allow the truth to be revealed. If you enjoyed this video, don't be shy, hit the like button, and if you disliked it, hit the dislike button twice just to be sure. You should watch the full movie. Thank you very much for watching.